So it's funny. I love talking about the Giants when stuff like this comes along. So reportedly, Saquon Barkley is not denying the possibility that he could sit out of the 2023-2024 NFL season because of his little franchise tag that pays him about $10 million, where he's looking, based on his words, not to reset the running back market, but reportedly is asking for the same amount of money per year as Christian McCaffrey. Which in my mind, I think in a lot of people's minds, that's pushing it. Or is it? Now, I think it was smart, at least for the Giants' perspective, to give Daniel Jones his contract because it allowed you to franchise tag Saquon Barkley. Now, if you were to sign Saquon to a contract and franchise tag Daniel Jones, that wouldn't have honestly been the best option. But maybe it should have been. Because if we take a look at the Giants' season, and I'm going to bring up the numbers here in a second, Saquon was a major part of the Giants' success last year. I know people want to say, oh, Daniel Jones, he had a coming out party. He was amazing. Yeah, he threw 15 touchdowns. Davis Mills, I believe, had the same or more. He had tied touchdown passes with Marcus Mariota, who didn't even finish out the year. Derek Carr, Russell Wilson. Do I want to keep going with how many quarterbacks had more touchdown passes than Daniel Jones? Daniel Jones did not have a great year. He's overpaid. I said I would pay him probably the lowest $30 million. That's probably, I don't know, honestly the highest was $30 million because he's not worth it. I'm sorry. Did he have a pretty good year? Yeah, he did. I will admit that. He had a more efficient year, lower turnovers, more running, and he just honestly looked a little bit better with Brian Daboll as his head coach. However, I saw it from week one. You could bring up the tape. Against the Titans, they were down, and it was Saquon Barkley who brought the game back. And honestly, throughout the year, it's really been the running game that has been the Giants' major success point. So let's look at it. So, when the Giants have more rushing yards than passing yards in a game, this is their numbers. 25 points a game. On average, between these, the more rushing yards than passing yards, about 230 rushing yards to 156 passing yards. This past season, the rushing rank was 4th. The passing game was ranked 26th. The rushing attack from the Giants was the reason for their success. And there was one game in there. I will say this. I will be honest because I love context. Context is very, very important. There was one game, and I believe I could be wrong. It was the Bears game, where Saquon and Daniel Jones had about even in rushing yards. I think Daniel Jones had 107. Saquon might have had 110. The numbers might be wrong and the game is wrong, but there was one game last season where the quarterback and the running back had very similar numbers. But primarily, it was Saquon Barkley who was the reason for the Giants' success. In games where he rushed 80 or more yards, they were 5-2. They averaged about the same amount of turnovers, but they had a great record. They had what? They went 9-6-1, if I'm not mistaken. So when Daniel Jones rushed for 80 or more yards, they won more. They had double their wins without that. More than double. So this idea that Saquon may sit out, I would say, is honestly pretty scary for the Giants. Because I think in the mentality that we have in the NFL now, if you have a great offensive line, any running back will at least be around the same amount of production as your prior running back or as another running back on your team. Well, in the case of the Giants, they don't have a great offensive line. They have about an average to slightly below average offensive line. They added, I believe, a pretty good rookie center that should be interesting to look at. But in total, they don't have a great offensive line. They have a really good tackle. I'll give you that. Andrew Thomas is a pretty good tackle. But outside of that, they really don't have anyone phenomenal. So this idea that Matt Breida or anyone else could come in and put the same amount of production as Saquon is just not true. Saquon, I understand why you may not want to sign him to a big deal for a couple reasons. One, running backs generally don't get second contracts, and they generally aren't big contracts. Look at Zeke. He's probably one of the most recent ones to get a huge contract, and his production slipped very quickly. Christian McCaffrey is an outlier, because Christian McCaffrey can do everything really, really well. His receiving game amongst running backs is the best without question. His rushing attack, we saw it last year, was insanely effective. Hell, he could even throw the ball, which I believe we saw last year as well. So what we saw from CMC is not Saquon's level. And to say Saquon doesn't want to reset the running back market, yet he wants CMC type numbers, at least on a contract, that is unrealistic. Reportedly, the Giants offered him before $14 million a year and he turned it down. I would have accepted that because now they're looking at about $11 to $12 million. If I was Saquon, I would have taken the 14 because guess what? The Giants maybe don't feel like they need you. And maybe that's on them, but I think the Giants desperately need him. And that's why I think the Giants should bite. Now, you didn't bite on Daniel Jones's $45 million a year, which that's smart. But you paid him $40 million a year, which is absolutely ridiculous for a quarterback that threw 15 touchdown passes last season. Should he be better this year with more talent? Yeah, he should be. Should he be about mid-20s to maybe low 30s? He should be. Now, this is passing touchdowns because when it's all said and done, a quarterback needs to throw the football. You could say, oh, he had 7 rushing touchdowns. Okay, great for you. Look at Lamar Jackson. Look at Justin Fields. How's their success with running and passing the ball? Not that great. You have about the same amount of playoff wins. But to get to the next echelon of the NFL, to bring your team into, championship level, NFC Conference Championship, AFC Conference Championship, you gotta be able to throw the ball well. So I think personally, this is a non-biased opinion coming from a Patriots fan. You can see to my left, your right here, that's Malcolm Butler and Julian Edelman's catch in Super Bowl 51. Unbiased opinion. It would be very, very wise to not pay Saquon the $16 million a year, but maybe offer him again the $14 or maybe $15 million a year, because his impact on and off the field and in the locker room, you're not really going to find that else on the open market. Now, maybe if you let Saquon go, potentially, and then sign a Dalvin Cook, that may be good enough to actually do. However, I think Dalvin Cook is also looking to get paid. So we'll see. You need Saquon. That's all I know. A lot of your production did not come from Daniel Jones dinking and dunking throughout the entire year. It came from Saquon Barkley running the football. All your big explosive plays throughout the year was primarily Saquon Barkley. So you need Saquon a lot more than I think Saquon needs you, because I think if Saquon hits the open, let's just say, just per chance, this won't happen. But if Saquon hits the open market, there's a deadline, I think July 17th, if I'm not mistaken. If he either sits out or if he somehow hits the open market, I guarantee you, a team, I'm not sure what team, I haven't broken down which teams desperately need a running back or have the cap for it, a team will pay him about the $15, $16 million a year, or around that, maybe 14. But I'm saying right now, you're not going to get the same amount of production with the running backs you have now, and I'll look up the depth chart right now off the top of my head. I'm not sure. I don't know it. Right now, you have Saquon Barkley, you have Matt Breida, you have Gary Brightwell, and Eric Gray. Are you going to get the same amount of production as what? 1,200, 1,300 yards? Around 10 touchdowns from Matt Breida? No. You're going to get it from Saquon Barkley. You're not going to get it from Matt Breida, Eric Gray, or Gary Brightwell. That's for sure. And Daniel Jones, I think we all saw it. The team looked a lot better when the ball either came quickly out of his hands or when he was handing it off. Not when he's sitting in the pocket trying to, do long decision making and figuring out which guy is open. He's a quick offense, very quick. Give it to Saquon. Give it to Matt Breida. Check downs, short drag routes. Not think in the pocket. Sign Saquon. You don't need to pay him $16 million. Go 14, 14 and a half, 15, around that number, and I think he'll accept it. But we'll see. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, if you want to check out the full episode, make sure you click the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to listen to this show anywhere you go, make sure you go to anchor.fm/The Harvey Hour or anywhere you get your podcasts.